Hello, I'm Pam Webster, a presbyter retired on ill health in 2007. Mine is a story not just of disability, but also chronic illness, which adds another dimension. My story is a progressive one. Most days I can do very little, some days less. When I first became ill, my symptoms quickly affected my whole life, including my ability to continue working. I have a chronic illness that affects every part of my body that should have fluid in it, from the eyes and mouth to my joints and everything in between. It most noticeably affects my breathing and talking, hence why I'm speaking to you recorded, but also my balance, my walking, my concentration, my energy, my vision, eating and sitting for very long. So many of which are so necessary for Methodist Church life. It's hard work to be at church for worship, and anything extra is virtually impossible. Of course, thrown into that has been the need to shield during the pandemic. My personal accessibility questions are: can I get into the building on days when I'm well enough? Is there available parking at the entrance? Can I get through the door wobbling on my crutches, or if I have to come in on my mobility scooter? Is the threshold level? Is the way into the worship area an obstacle course to someone with mobility problems, or is it uncluttered? Is there a plain coloured floor and no steps? And once I've negotiated that, is the right seat available? Height, space around it, near enough to the door? All those kind of questions. When we moved to our current circuit, my first question was, which church has the comfiest seats? That may seem a stupid question to ask, but to me, it's the most important thing. Is any written material available in the right font, the right size, the correct colour contrast? And of course, that applies to social media posts as well. I need the lighting to be just the right dimness for me, where I am. And do those leading worship speak slowly enough for me to process and respond? I do sometimes wonder if there's a competition to see how quickly the Lord's Prayer can be said, and I can never keep up. They are my questions and my needs. Unfortunately, people within the same disabilities as me may have different solutions to the same questions. My top tip is always ask someone what would help them. Never assume what they need, even if it looks just like what someone else needs. We understand that it is a balancing act for the needs of everyone. I've been in 3 different churches since becoming ill, and my disabilities have increased, and we've needed to move to accommodate them. And a big shout out to MMHS, who have been so helpful in that. Experiences of church have been varied. Some are willing to listen to what would help and do what they can, as my current church emphatically is. But for some, it seemed impossible for them to understand or react, which has ultimately meant I had to move on. There are many issues of accessibility, but also of visibility, or perhaps invisibility. When you are chronically ill, there are often times when you're not around, and it's not always noticed, quite reasonably, that you are even more unwell than usual, so may need some support, pastoral or practical, unless you shout, and you're not always well enough to do that. Sometimes I do just long for someone to check on me. Chronic illness can be a very lonely life. Zoom and hybrid worship have been a brilliant tool for those of us who find physical church difficult. And we are fortunate that we formed quite a community amongst those of us who watch online, rather than being in the building. but that doesn't always translate into those who are in the building knowing what is happening in our lives. I really do think there is a lot of the work that can be done with hybrid worship on how those watching online can add to worship and not just be consumers of what those in the building offer. We have things to offer too. My ministry has been supported, encouraged, and enabled during lockdown. It has presented new opportunities. I've been able to record some devotional videos in small chunks and edit them together, and to write written sermons that have gone out in the mailings to those who are not connected via the internet. For that I am very grateful, because for several years I had not been able to offer anything. The thing we can all best do for those who are disabled is to help and encourage them to use their gifts. We still have a ministry, even if it might look very different to what it once looked like or how we imagined. My hope for the Methodist Church is that in love, accessibility can be taken on board. If it is not, it seems as though I don't matter to the church. My presence and inclusion aren't worthwhile enough to make simple adaptations for me. And sadly, the reading of that for some can be, if I don't matter to the church, I don't matter to God. So I am grateful for the opportunity to share in this conversation this afternoon, because it matters. Thank you.